gamers! I'm Commander Shepard.
What? Whatever. I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be previewing Rogue Angels, Legacy of the Burning Suns. This is published by Sun Tzu Games and designed by Emil Larsen. Now, this will be coming to Kickstarter on the day this video is released. So if you do want to check out the campaign, you can find a link down below in the video description. Now I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who's going to tell you more about the game itself and just explain why we've got this this version of the box in front of us here.
Yeah, so this is a preview copy, so thank you for sending that over to us so we could give you our thoughts on the game. As always, our thoughts, our opinions will be our own, but a little bit of a twist here. We will not be giving it a rating. We're just going to be telling you guys what we thought of the game. So this is a cooperative game intended for ages 16 and above. Plays 1 to 4 players in about 60 to, 120 minutes?
Yeah, 120 minutes. And so far, I would say that all of our games we play a lot of cooperative games. And as there's only 2 missions in the box, these may be on the shorter side, have definitely been right around that 45 to 60 minute mark. So really nice time spot for a campaign game. Now, what will you be doing in Rogue Angels Legacy of the Burning Suns? And why did I introduce myself as Commander Shepard instead of Jason? Well, this game is inspired by Mass Effect, meaning you're going to have one player that is the commander. The commander will be the one breaking ties as you make decisions during the game. Now, each player will be able to make their own decisions. It will affect their character progression differently, as those decisions will unlock different personality traits, may even unlock different story options later on, depending if you killed someone, left them alive, as this is a Legacy campaign game. Your characters can be killed and you will then replace them with another character. You will be going through a narrative campaign. Now in this setting, I believe it's the Galactic Assembly has a sort of, they controlled the universe in a good way. Everyone was happy, but things are now starting to collapse. People got too comfortable. Old enmities have started rising back into the fold, and all the members of the assembly are now at each other's throats. But there are rumors that there may even be something from beyond the galaxy out deep in the black that is also reaching in and causing some of these issues between the different political parties for their own nefarious ends. And is that really happening? Well, who knows? As the game is inspired by Mass Effect a little bit, I'm going to guess yes. And, that's a nice story hook for me. But we'll have to wait and see. So we are now going to give the second mission another try. We played it one way. We wanted to try playing it through another way. As like I mentioned, we only have the first 2 missions in this box. We did play around a little bit with the other maps and just saw sort of how things work, but we weren't really able to get the full experience as we don't have the detailed standees that have some key information that we needed to progress. So, did I miss anything at all, Julie?
Don't think so.
I think the only thing I neglected to say, you have an action deck of cards, and you're going to be playing them in different slots based on their cost to take your actions. So yeah, also, there's dice. You're going to be rolling dice, so you're going to definitely want to do that. And you see, I'm so excited to get this back to the table, I even knocked the box. So I think on that note, we need to take it down a notch and
hope that you roll better than you've been rolling.
Yeah, well, this roll would be nice, but yeah, I've been rolling pretty terribly. So on that note, we're going to
grab our drinks,
grab our best friend.
We're going to take it to the table one more time.
One more time. Now we're going to teach you how to set up and how to play Rogue Angels Legacy of the Burning Sun. So here we have the map set up. When you actually get the game, it will be a map book. So you want to start with the map that is correctly titled for your missions. As you can see, this is map 001. Now this will contain some spoilers for the tutorial, so just keep that in mind if you're going to be watching us teach you the game. So we have our Terran character, Vera and Kalu. Now I have her oriented this way just because I want to make sure she was visible to the camera. We've got our damage cards. We have our turn order sequence and a reference card. And just some of the things that I know for a fact we're going to be needing during the game. You also need some doors for the initial setup. So I'm going to put those out here as well. We've got the terminals, and then the other icons will be instructed to come out from the campaign booklet. Now, as the game requires you to have at least 2 characters, just off camera where you can't see her, I've got Sigyn, who will also be part of this mission. Now, we need to set up our characters, so you're going to want to take the activation token. Now, these are just all samples. Remember, this is a prototype. So just to say that they're charged and they can take an action, we'll use the white dot as the part that we want to have face up. We're going to need the 2 standees for our characters. So these I'm going to just place here for the moment. Now, the one thing I do want to note is that typically you will not have this side up for your first mission. You can use the alternate side because you will not have any personality traits. As we are teaching you how to play the game, I have this set up because I want to use personality traits while teaching you how to play. Now, also, as I mentioned, you got the reference card there. On the back, you also have the nice reference sheet for the icons as well, and then it explains your personality traits. So we've got that set up. We then need to set up your focus and your shields, which always start off at the maximum value. And then depending on if you have painted in any of these personality traits, you'll have a token there where you can then trigger that personality trait. Now, they have limited uses per mission. From what I've understood and what we've gone to play, we've only been able to use it 1 time per mission so far. Now, what you're going to need to do is take a look at the campaign book and then follow the instructions as to what you're going to be doing to set it up. You got a sneak peek as to what's coming, but you'll see the mission layout here. So it tells you where to place your team, the question mark objective, where that's going to go. And then we've got these areas that are currently blocked off. So we cannot go here. This area is blocked, and this area is blocked. Now, down below here, it's going to tell you what your turn limit is. So it goes 4, 5, and 6. So that is for 2, 3, and 4 characters. So we set the turn limit to 4. 1 character has to be the commander. In this case, we'll decide that Sigyn will be the commander for this mission. And it tells us that failure, we just have to restart the mission. So let's place our team members where they need to go. And we're going to get this show on the road. So I am going to go through the very first part of this mission because it's going to let me show you just what is another part of the setup, because you will be conducting setup during the game. So we've got Sigyn here, they're the commander, and we need to move. So what you're going to be doing is playing an action card from your hand. So you can see right here. Now, basic movement actions will tell you what you can do. You can move 1, you can roll a die, will then let you modify your basic movement. Now, we're going to pretend that I'm going to roll just to get to the location because I want to continue the setup. I really want to focus more on this during the how to play portion, but let's see what we can do. So I'm going to go ahead, play the basic movement. So I can move 1 for sure, and I get to roll a die, and then I get +1 and +1 shield, meaning I could regain a shield. Has it been lost? I can also add +1 to my movement value. Not the greatest, but I get to move 1, 2. Now you can use focus to re-roll the dice. Yes, I know I'm touching Vera's sheet because Sigyn's is not on the table, but you can also take things like other cards, basic interact actions, and try to roll the dice to get the movement. So see, this is +1. It's not going to add anything, but if I've been lucky enough to roll the 2 movement, well, then I get where I needed to go. So we're just going to pretend that I went ahead, played this, got the 2 movement. I don't use the interact ability at all. I don't have to. I can just use it to roll the dice. And then these are going to go back to my hand at the end of the turn. Now, I'm going through the play sequence here, and this is why this is important, is because you can perform 2 actions, as you saw, which is playing 2 cards. So end of turn, we get to take a rest action. So there's the also possibility of the flip. So I have to flip the activation token, and then I have to move the turn marker. So if I hadn't got there, I'd move the turn marker, it would then be her turn, and then move the turn marker, and then I would get another turn. Enemies will activate, as you can see, after the mission update. So in any case, you got a brief overview as to why I was doing that. Now, as you can see, we met the objective. So because I met the objective, I then have to go down. It says, if successful, continue to mission update 1. So now we're going to have other things that need to do. Also, what's important to note is that the turn track will reset. So now this will go back up to 6, and we have 6 turns to complete it. This area that was locked now contains a door that can be interacted with, and we've got to place the terminal in this location. So we've got 6 turns. We are now ready to go. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start from here, and I'm going to jump into the full how to play, explain things a little bit more detail. But you see how you set up the game. You see how you're going to be conducting setup during the game. So enemies will be coming on the board later on. Now keep it right here as I come back at you with our how to play. Now we're going to teach you how to play Rogue Angel's Legacy of the Burning Suns. Now, if you watch the setup portion, you got to see just a quick turn where I discussed going through the 2 actions and showed you how setup would be conducted multiple times during the game. So just for your reference, Sigyn is activated. Her battery is spent. She cannot activate until all other players have gone. So at this point, we now have our turn track at 6. It is Vera and Kalu's turn, and she is going to go and try to get in to this location. Now, what can we do in order to get in there? Well, we're going to take a look at the cards that we have available to us, and we are going to take the best action possible for Vera. So here we have her different cards. We can try to take a dash action, which is move 2. There's a basic interact action that we can try. There's a basic move. We've got our wristband to hack. We've got the jetpack. We've got our med kit, which will let us heal, and our N07 pistol that does a ton of damage. So you'll notice that we do have also these different things that we can do depending on what we play, and that would be if we use our personality tokens to trigger these extra effects, and not everything has these different effects. But we really want to get to the store and we want to try to interact. Now, if we take a look at what we've got with our calm wrist, so interact with an adjacent object for 2, but we get to roll 2 dice. Now you can go for something that's really, really ballsy here. And that's what we're going to try to do just because I want to keep things going. Now you'll see what the type of action is, interact, and what the cost is. So they have to be placed in the specific spot on your board. And then whether you take a rest action, they'll slide down. And at the end of the turn, they'll slide down again. And that's how these will get back into your hand. So we can roll 2 dice. And we want to try to open this door in one shot. Well, actually, I got exactly the roll that I wanted. Because you see, we've got the 2 movement here, which is perfect. We played this, so we were able to take the 2 movement to get adjacent to the door. We can now take an interact action, and it said that is 2. We rolled a +1, so we can draw 3 things to interact. Now, if I rolled a +2, it would be 2. For the case of this, I am just going to go ahead and draw the 3. So you can draw these 1 at a time out of the bag. It's something that you may want to do because if you ever draw 2 whites, your interaction is canceled. So I drew 3 at a time. It worked out fairly well for me here. So we have 2 purple. Now this red will go back into the bag. Once you finally solve something, these tokens, which there will be in the actual version of the game, will not go back into the bag. So we want to try and open this door for sure in this turn, as we got limited time. So we've got a basic interact action, which is 0. So, you can just play it beside the board. You're going to take it back anyway. I can roll 1 dice, so I can interact for 1. And I get an extra shield or a +1, so I can pull 2. Now this is when I'm going to want to go 1 by 1. So I pull a blue, no good, and then I need a purple or a white. So I got a white. Now whites are wild, so that works. This has now been interacted with, and we will place these tokens next to the bag, returning the blue to the bag. The doorway has been opened. So now I go through the end phase of my turn. So I take this basic interact action back, goes back into my hand. I take the rest action that is here. The turn track will advance by 1. Now, I did not meet any of the conditions to trigger a mission update, so we'll reference that here. So no successes. There are no enemies, meaning we will skip the enemy phase. Now I flip this down, and it is once again the player's turn. I also flip Sagan's, who's off screen, her token up, and then we can decide what we want to do. Now I need to make sure and see how far away I am. So 1, 2. So I can try to get really risky again here to just try to be as efficient as possible. So we're gonna try that. I might actually just sort of modify what we want to do here. So I'm gonna play the so what I'm gonna do is take a rest action to get this back into my hand. So that's my first action. As my second action, I'm gonna play this down again. Now I'm going to change up where I place the personality markers at the start of the game. You will normally not have these in number 1, but as you can see here, if I placed it over, if I had this personality area, now these will have to be filled in for you to have them actually, just to be clear. I can take this to get an extra die, and at this point I really want an extra die because there's lots of stuff that I want to potentially do here. So we're going to roll the dice, and that actually was pretty good. The 2 movement and the +1 are key. 2 movement means I'll be able to get there and be able to interact with it, but I want to re-roll this dice. So I'm going to spend a focus, roll the die, I get another +1. So that's actually really good. The shield as well is good. So we're going to go 1, 2. I'm now adjacent to this, so I can make that interact action. So also I could interact and then move. The flexibility of how I want to take my actions is completely up to me. But in this case, I need to get to this objective. So I can interact for 4. So I'm not going to want to draw everything all at once. We might want to draw stuff one at a time. I'll draw stuff 2 at a time, a purple and a white. And then we'll want to draw 1 more, just blue, draw 1 more, and it's a red. So we're gonna have to take another interact action, but as I want this to flow, we'll just pretend that I got really lucky here and I pulled another blue. Remember, if I happen to get unlucky and I pulled a second white, all this would go back in the bag and I would have essentially failed, making my awesome ballsy move not really worth it. So we'll pretend that I pulled the blue, meaning I spend these 3. This will go back in the bag to interact with the console. Now that is once again the end of my turn. So we do the end of turn rest action, flip this over, and we will advance the turn marker. Now, however, we have succeeded at the mission parameters. Because of that, you go to the mission update and it'll tell us that there are now enemies spawning on the board. It would also tell us what side the enemy behavior will be spawning on. So we have the enemy behavior card as apprehensive attack on the red side. That's why you see the R. It tells us to place 2 thugs Y1 and Y2 and 1 guard in R1. Now, the numbers are for the initiative orders. These are the guards, and you can see their stats. Sorry, these are the thugs. You can see their stats. 3 health, no shields, 4 range, 3 movement, and they deal a damage. So we'll place those where they need to go. We then have the guard, who has a range of 1, a movement of 3, and we'll start right here. We also remove all of the blocked areas. So that is the mission update. So our next objective would be to eliminate all the enemies. We're going to scroll ahead just a little bit just to show you what will happen, because in this portion here, you will eventually have to interact with the door and get to your ship. Now your ship is sort of like your legacy game box. It'll tell you where to place things. The ship typically aligns with the door. In this case, as you saw on the map, it is there. There are doors on different maps, so you will be able to get back to your ship, and only players can move to and from it. We're not going to cover that next mission update. We've got our mission. We know what we need to do, and as I'm not going to be using this side of the board as we go through this stuff, so we need to go and take the attack. So it said, once again, just a reminder, it is apprehensive attack on the red side. So we'll place that into play, and it tells us what we do. So the lowest initiative goes first. That's the next lowest, as we only have 1, right, will trigger. So they will move towards the nearest player and then damage the same player. So they move 1, 2, they get in range. The range is only 1, as you can see from the card. and then they deal 2 damage. Now, I don't have any defensive abilities or anything such as that, first and foremost, so what I'll have to do is just take the damage. Now, you may have cards and things that you can play that will let you block damage, but in this case, I take 2 damage on my shields. It hasn't gone through. I will not take a damage card. If ever I get down to 0 shields and I take damage, I will draw a damage card, and then I will place it at the corresponding spot and also follow what it tells me to do. So it tells me when drawn, place this on 1. Ongoing actions means you got -1 focus. And when discarded, you get to move a damage card 1 to the right. But in this case, as you can see, this is blocked, so this concussion would have to go here. That is not the case. I've just taken 2 damage on my shields. I am still okay. Now, it's going to be Sigyn's turn. And we will eventually flip this over to the next side, but we only do that later on. We don't do it right away, as it will tell us what the enemy is planning. We have our objectives. Sigyn needs to go ahead and do some cool stuff here and maybe potentially even get rid of all these guards. So we've got jamming rifle, disruption shoot, katana slashers, mechanized legs. So pretty cool stuff. We can try to make a basic movement. And when you take a look at what we've got here, we can also try to draw a line of sight, which is from the center of your square. So right now, I have line of sight on one of them. I do not have any line of sight on the other. So I can try to go with my jamming rifle, roll a die and see where I get. But I've got these nice katana slashers too. We also have these enhanced mech legs. And this is the one I'm going to want to go with. So this has to be played on spot 2. It says I can jump over an object or an empty space for 2 and deal 3 damage to an adjacent enemy. So that's pretty cool. Let me get in range. I also have these awesome katana slashers, but I have to get in range of these enemies first. So I can always try with just, a basic move, which will let me move 1, 1, 2. So not quite where I'd want to get to anyway. So you got to take all that stuff into account. Now every player has got their own special abilities. So actually I made a mistake here. So as you can see, human resolve, when you're more than 2 squares away, you get 2 free rerolls. So actually, when I have to have spent focus, it was good for teaching you, but I'll put that back because it is important. So Sigyn, for example, when she destroys an enemy, she will regain some of her focus. So I got to just decide what makes the most sense. And there's still some pretty cool stuff to do with all of these cards, but unfortunately, I just don't think I'll be able to get in range. I can definitely do the mechanized jump, but is that really what I want to do? I'd like to ideally take both of them out if possible. And unfortunately, I just don't have a good way to get in range because I didn't get another turn. But I can try to shoot with the jamming rifle, which is range 5, which will let me take out one of them. But you know what? The only way I'm going to have any chance of doing this is with the mechanized leg. So we're going to play this one, put it on space 2. Now, you would not have this, I say in the tutorial. I'd set up her personally markers on the green spot, so I will spend this to at least get access to a die so that I can roll a die, otherwise I would not have one. So it gives me a shield, no good. Give me +1, so that's +1 that can be applied then to either the space or the damage. So if I can jump 3, it's pretty good, so I can move 1, 2, 3. And I can land here and deal 3 damage to this guy. Getting rid of him. Now, as I spent the focus, my assassinate ability means that I can gain back 1 focus. So now I need to take out this character that is in my face. So I've got a few different things that I can do. I can try the jamming rifle. I can do a basic interact action. And I really want to deal 3 damage, which is going to be fairly hard, but you know what? The thing that makes the most sense because of what I want to do is the jamming rifle. So you know that it is also a 2-cost card. Well, you don't need to worry about that because if you have to play a card that costs 2 and its space is occupied, you can just play it to any one of these higher sequences. So in this case, I'll play this to slot 3 on Sigyn. I've got 1 die, and I'm really just going to have to go for broke here and get everything. Well, sorry, I have 1 die. I don't know why I was rolling 2 there, just spaced out. So roll the first die, +1, that's only 2 damage. Not good enough. So spend the focus. So that's +2, which can be applied, meaning that He'd be defeated because he's got no shield, so no damage absorption, and he would take 3 damage, meaning I'd get a focus back. So that's exactly what I wanted to do. And there you have it. That's really how you're going to be playing the game. Once you get to the next mission update, you're going to be changing things up. And I did notice something that I neglected to do when it was to take out all enemies, is that I had to reset the timing to 6. So turn timing to 6. That is what was written here. So turn limit is 6. And as Sigyn is the only one that's going, would have gone at the end of her turn, you'd move that down to 5, follow all the instructions. Now, when we get to the enemy phase, as all yellows are defeated, you'd still flip it over, but they're not going to activate. It's just an advantage for you. But let's see what would happen if the enemy activated. So the lowest initiative, in this case is 2, would attack the nearest player, and then move towards the same player. Now, as they are at range, they don't really need to move, so make the decision that makes the most sense to you. Like, I would say that they would probably move to kind of, keep an eye on both players. Now you can see their movement value is a total of 3, and they would deal 1 damage to Sigyn, lowering her shields by 1. So I think we've given you a nice overview of the game. You now know how to play it. So we've got more people to take care of, but in this case, we're in a pretty good spot because we're going to take out the red guy, and then we're going to keep on going. But we don't want to spoil anything. This is really just a taste of the game. The legacy elements, how you're going to be painting your different personalities, and what you're going to be doing with the legacy folder. Those weren't included, but it's fairly straightforward. Fill those slots in. Gain the rewards when you are told to. Now, when you paint something in between missions, you will then gain access to a token. During a mission, you only gain access to a token if it tells you to do so in the campaign log. So I believe we've covered everything. Now, keep it right here, as Drew and I are going to come at you with our thoughts on the game. So, Julie, we've got Rogue Angels, Legacy of the Burning Suns in front of us. We just got to scratch the surface of this game. It is a legacy campaign game. So if you did skip ahead to this preview portion, we only got to scratch the surface because we only had the components for the first 2 missions in the box. We did play around with some of the other missions a little bit, saw what was coming, but we didn't have enough to actually dive into them. I'm really curious what Julie's going to say, because when we started this, she was like, this seems really complicated. But I don't know. I'm wondering where she's at now that we've got the missions played and really got some time to spend with these characters.
Yeah, well, the mechanism is a little different from other games that we've played, the first tutorial was fairly simple, and it did its job. It really helped us to figure out how to play the cards. I can't say that I've played something like this before, where basically you're playing a card, and the cost of the card basically is the amount of time before you get it back in your hand. Have you played a game like this before?
We've definitely played games that are similar, like placing a card on a board and waiting to get it back. But I think the key thing in this is the fact that each card has a cost and a specific slot. Now, we have played games where you have to play cards to certain slots, but never necessarily having to wait for it to progress down the track in order to get it back. So it's definitely got an interesting combination of mechanics that we've seen before, but never quite in this specific form, especially in a campaign-style game.
Yeah, so this also has a lot to do with chance, because you're also, you have a basic, your card has a basic ability, I guess you'd call it, and then the die roll can amplify it.
Yeah, so for example, like with your attack card right there, it does, what does it do? It deals 3 damage to an enemy.
And then I can roll 2 dice, then basically I guess I could do up to 4 more.
Exactly, you can get a +2, like on the dice, or +1, gain a shield back to protect from damage. You can even roll movement, meaning you could actually get some more movement options as well. So that's really cool in terms of what you can get with this game. You can take an attack action, but really just be trying to roll the dice to get that move symbol if you're in dire needs or in desperate straits.
Yeah, not my character. My character only has 1 gun, so that doesn't
No,
work.
but your basic interact also counts as your basic attack, so you can try to roll the dice for that. But at that point, it's really just, taking a Hail Mary.
Yeah, so, from what you've told me as well, we don't have, we have a preview copy, so from what I hear about the table presence, it'll be even more impressive. There'll be a book.
Yeah, so the maps that you see right here will also be in a book, so it's going to be spiral bound, I believe, or something similar that's just going to flip out, so it's going to be very easy to get it to the table, take it back from the table. The ship is actually going to be a box where you will be able to store all of the legacy components. And then each character does have their legacy folder where you're going to be keeping their character sheet that you will have marked up with some different skills and things that you're going to gain, any new cards and things like that. Now, if you are watching previews of this game done by other previewers, reviewers, not everyone got the same characters, so just keep that in mind when we start talking a little bit about our experiences with them. We've got Sigyn and Koroks, and then you've got
Vera and Kalu.
So those are the three that we got. Every reviewer got 3 different characters to play with. Now, I'm sure there are some duplicates, but that's the ones we got in our box.
Yeah, so I got a human. She does have an interesting ability where basically if you're more than 2 spaces away from an ally, you can get up to 2 free rerolls, which came in very handy because I was often out there on my own, trying to get things done.
No, and I was playing as a Koroks, and his special ability is taking the hit, which didn't come in as handy as I would have thought. He's got a lot of shields, but we just really weren't in a situation where I necessarily wanted him to be soaking a lot of enemy fire. We also had Sigyn, who we played together with some cool abilities. Now, she can't concentrate, which means get back opportunities to reroll, but whenever she defeats an enemy, she gains that back, meaning, if you're not getting that great roll, why don't you go for the reroll? Because if you happen to kill one of them, you're just going to get that opportunity back like that.
We only got to scratch the surface of the other abilities here were basically...
The personality traits.
The personality traits are basically, it's unlocking potentially other abilities. Now, the gun doesn't have any other abilities, but like my jetpack, depending on if I'm using the red or the blue, I could, deal 2 damage or push enemies away from me.
So I've got heavy charge right here, and this, as you can see, has got the red and the orange. Now, the way that the personality traits work is that you may potentially gain them during a mission cutscene or after a mission. Now, if you gain it in the mission aftermath, you're going to be coloring in. I'll move this just so that you can see. You'll be coloring in, your sheet, and then you'll have access to the token. Now, if it does happen during a mission, it may tell you to paint and gain the token right away, meaning that you could maybe only have 1 personality trait. You'll gain access to that new one when you're playing the mission.
Yes, I mean, it's been... It's different, and it's that's kind of refreshing. It's nice to have different games. Some games feel like we're living the same thing again. This is a fantasy setting, or would you call it more sci-fi?
This is definitely more sci-fi. I mean, you can maybe tell, as I mentioned in the intro, that this game is inspired by Mass Effect. You're going to be developing interpersonal relationships with different members of the crew, different factions. When you complete the first mission, depending on how it goes, you're going to be marking things down in your legacy journal just to say where your standing is based on your interactions, which I think is just really cool. And yeah, I really like that aspect of the game, meaning that the further you go on through the campaign book, the more the game is going to change. And it's a fairly long campaign book. It's got about 160 pages. So the campaign book that we had access to does look like it's the whole campaign. We didn't go through all of it. But what's interesting about it is that missions often have different branching ways that you can go. And there's different cutscenes really to try to adapt so almost that the video game element into the game and have it change based on your decisions. I mean, you even get
It's like choose your own adventure.
Yeah, there's a little bit of choose your own adventure elements. I mean, you got to think about what you're doing at the time, though, because you don't necessarily always want to be heroic. It might make things worse for you.
The other thing I would say is at least for the first 2 campaigns that we played, I don't know how long they get afterwards. They seem to be fairly reasonable in length and, don't take 2 hours to play, which is a definite bonus. A lot of campaign games that we've played, have been fairly long and a little bit difficult to get to the table.
Yeah, I mean, we've been playing The Lord of the Rings Spreading War, and that's not so bad, clocking in probably around the 60 to 90 minute mark per mission. When we go back to Descent, clocking clocking in at the new one, Legends of the Dark, clocking at the 2 to 3 hour mark, it means that each mission is almost 1 to 2 play sessions for us, and our time is limited. We were able to do the tutorial rather quickly. We got through the second mission fairly quickly as well. We even dabbled around a bit in the third, but as we mentioned, we didn't quite have all the components to play it out, but we had some fun experiencing it, and then we actually went back and played through the second mission and just went sort of the other way that we could have gone, and got a little bit more combat experience. Well, that was what we did the first time. This time we actually just went the other way and, had to escape this base. So it really just has a lot of variety, and I like that because the campaign is designed to be replayed. Yeah, you're not necessarily going to go through all the different character envelopes during a campaign. Now, characters can be killed. If they're killed, you're going to have to take a new one, and you will level them up so that they're at the same point as the other characters. But that means that I believe there's a total of 20 that are listed available. So the game is for 4 players. I mean, you can probably play through this whole campaign up to 5 times. I don't know if you're going to get that many plays out of it unless you absolutely love it. I mean, people like myself have played through the original Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3 multiple times, and that's some big time commitment. So if you love this game, I can definitely see you doing it.
I don't think I have anything else to add.
The one thing I do want to add that I think is very different and something that we haven't seen is the scar system with regards to the game. The scars are basically when you take permanent damage, and that's how your character is going to eventually end up out of the game. But each character can take a different amount. I think you can take up to 6. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 9, and Sigan can take up to 6. So it seems like 6 is really like the baseline, but any characters that are going to be more defensive. So you do have like the different character classes will be able to last in the fight a little bit longer in that case. Now, with regards to the rule book, overall it's pretty good. There were some things that I noticed that I'm sure are going to be revised. Just some lack of little clarities in terms of how the bonuses were added. But if you reference just how they're added consistently throughout the rest of the rulebook, you're not going to find any issues. They will lack some clarity whether any of the enemies would open doors. I don't believe that they do. Review the instructions again just before sitting down, and there's no information in that regard. So I'd say leave them closed, especially the fact that you have to take your interact actions, which we actually didn't mention. So we should talk about that before we go to our final thoughts. So that was one thing. And then when it came to the personality traits, that was buried in the terminology, and I think it's something that should have been brought up to the forefront. I think just because of the way I'm used to going through rule books, especially when it comes to campaign games, there's typically a section all about leveling up your character that kind of summarizes how it's all going to happen, and that was just in a different section, so I thought that was a little bit off-putting. But primarily structure stuff with regards to the information is all right there and readily available. So since we caught ourselves, and that's why we do this together, and we try to summarize some things, we didn't actually talk about the interactions and the enemy behavior cards, which are definitely different, and we should get into that before we give our final thoughts.
So the interaction basically, you roll a dice to know how many interactions you have, and then you're pulling tokens of a different color out where white is wild, and each interaction needs 3 successes.
Yeah, and then you remove them from the bag, so that what you saw there was the 3 blue. So once they're removed from the bag, essentially what it means is that as you're going on missions, the more you're interacting with the enemy's security and the codes, the more familiar you're getting with it, meaning that it's going to become easier and easier to get the amount of successes. But you absolutely need 3 in order to succeed. If you ever happen to draw 2 white during an interaction, well, that'll cancel the interaction directly. And then the last thing we should talk about is the enemies really here, and the enemy behavior cards. So you actually have a red and a yellow side. Well, just said yellow side for the enemies. They'll have some specific rules up here, and it'll tell you how to go after and engage the different characters. Now, on the standees here, you may have shields, you have their range, you have their movement, you have their damage, you also have on their base telling you what the initiative is, and you'll have to deal as much damage as you can to take them out rather quickly. The neat thing about this is the enemies are finite, so if you eliminate all the enemies on a map, that may trigger the advancement of your mission. So that I thought was pretty cool, and also goes into the strategic level planning they have to do in the game, because there is a limited amount of enemies you can take damage. I would fully expect for you to run out of shields and then be drawing from the damage deck, and then based on what you draw, this will clog up your board. Now, drawing this one here when it's just a 1 is not so bad, because at the end of every turn you rest, which, you know, progresses things down the track, as we talked about, getting cards back into your hand. So that'll get rid of the wounds, and just because we didn't mention it, the 0-cost cards always go immediately back into your hand. So I think we now talked about the game. We've previewed enough of it. Did I miss anything at all?
I don't think so this time.
No, I think we covered everything. Oh, yes. We did enjoy using the campaign booklet on the iPad, and it's something that I might actually consider doing even when we get the physical copy of the game, because yes, probably will be backing it. A little bit of a spoiler, we did enjoy this. Just because with regard to the cutscenes and things like that, I felt it was really helpful to have the map and being able to progress through the cutscenes and the text on the iPad, which may be a little difficult in a book. If it's also spiral bound, you won't need it whatsoever. So on that note, Julie, this is a preview. We've just scratched the surface of it. I spoiled it a little bit, saying that we had some fun with it. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, like you said, we had fun. We enjoyed it. It'd be interesting to, you know, be able to dig. I'm curious to dig into it a little bit more, and I guess that's the intent of this, right? Give you a taste of it and get you to be, intrigued to try it out.
And who should be picking this one up?
People who like cooperative games. If you like the video game style, I think you'll definitely appreciate this. If you like the campaign, legacy style campaigns that have basically that progress differently depending on your actions, I think you'll definitely enjoy this. If you don't like sci-fi, you might not be as interested in this, but yeah.
No, so I'm going to agree with Julie. I think this is a great, at least, first impression that we have from the game. I'm intrigued. We'll be backing this. I want to play more of this game. The fact that we were able to get some of the missions played in 30 to 45 minutes. Also, you can see with everything that we've got here, the table presence, while it takes up a fair bit of room, it's still fairly well contained. You can pretty much play it we could play it on any table in the house, which is kind of appeals to me, especially like right now. We could find some time to, instead of watch a TV show, play the campaign, which doesn't always happen for us, because a game like Descent, we know that we're getting in for the long haul. If it's, like 9 p.m., 9:15, and we still really want to get back to the story, it's going to be a lot easier to just pop out the ship box, flip open the page, and we're going to pretty much be good to go. Might have to do just a teensy bit of prep with regards to the standees and things like that. Prep and continuing the mission is really quick, which is something that I appreciate and not something that happens often in campaign games. So if you like sci-fi, if you like progressing your characters, especially deciding how they level up, and your personality traits will level up differently depending on your actions, so that's pretty cool as well. You're really going to be able to create, you have a character, but you're going to be able to put your individual stamp on it. And on that note, it kind of reminds me of Aeon's End Legacy, where you have a character, you've got the framework for them, but based on the decisions and things that we did throughout the campaign, we really made our own mage. And I think that's really cool. So on that note, we need to tell everyone to
like, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And don't forget to comment as well. And take a look down below in the video description. You'll find links to all of our social media feeds. So if you'd like to see pictures of Julie and I playing Rogue Angels Legacy of the Burning Suns, there'll be some on those feeds. Also, you'll find a link to the campaign down there, and also a link to multizone.ca, a great Canadian game store. Click that link, you'll get 10% off your next purchase. And it's a great way to support the channel, as a portion of that purchase is returned to us. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release. And the most thematic thing I can think of, even though it's no longer in our collection, this will take you back to our review and how to play of Star Saga. That's the other sci-fi dungeon crawl that we got to play, but spoiler alert, we did not like it as much as this one. We still got to get Cine Tempore back to the table.
And now we're going to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
Okay, keep playing games.
keep playing games, and I'm eager to get this one when the Kickstarter finally fulfills.